MAGA Republican leaders are losing all control. They've been hit with the karma they deserve. They've refused to govern. They've refused to even talk with Democrats, yet alone negotiate with Democrats. And now, as the country is being ripped to shreds by Donald Trump's disastrous policies, when they try to blame the Democrats, guess what? The American people know that it's these MAGA Republicans who are to blame for the affordability crisis, for the disastrous trade war against the world, for Donald Trump making things far more dangerous in terms of foreign policy, for the failure to release the Epstein files. So you have these MAGA Republican leaders losing control and trying to blame Democrats or blame this or that, and it ain't working. Let me show you what went down. For example, you have MAGA Republican Congresswoman Salazar. She's from Florida, and she was asked, hey, what do you make of Donald Trump yelling at female reporters and calling them piggy and saying he doesn't like their attitude and saying they should lose their job? What do you think about that, Congresswoman Salazar? Here, play this clip.
The reporter says, if there's nothing incriminating in the file, sir, why not take? And he says, quiet, piggy. What was your response to that?
You know, President Trump is a very picturesque and difficult and different type of politician. But I always say that I look at his policies and not at his personality. No one is perfect. Those who are perfect are in heaven. That's why I am saying to him, you, because you have that personality and you have that fortitude and you dare to do things that other people do not dare to do, you are the guy who needs to fix immigration for this country, for the benefit of the average American worker and for the economy. If immigration is not fixed by him, it will take another 40 years for a Democrat, for a Republican to dare to do it. So that's why it's exactly, it just gave me the perfect platform to say to him, you are the guy. You dare to do things that others don't dare to fix immigration.
Or also, Congresswoman Salazar, didn't you guarantee the American people that Donald Trump was never going to arrest and round up people who were not criminals, migrants who had no criminal record and who had been in the United States for some time? Didn't you promise us that? So what do you make of Donald Trump using his ICE agents, his Border Patrol Gestapo to invade Los Angeles and Portland and Chicago, and now terrorizing Charlotte and saying they're going to come to other cities in the United States? Like, what do you think about what went down in Charlotte, Congresswoman Salazar? Because didn't you promise that this wasn't going to happen? Here, play this clip.
Thank you for the opportunity. And talking about Charlotte, 200 people in 48 hours were arrested. 70% of them did not have a criminal record, according to DHS. That's a mistake. And that is why I just wrote this book called The Dignity, Not Citizenship. This is the name of the legislation that I just introduced. And basically what it says is the ICE should be concentrating on the bad hombres. Exactly what President Trump said, that he wanted to do a mass deportation, the most important in the history of the country. And we agree. Kick out the ones who are bad hombres, the ones who have criminal records, the murderers and the rapists. But do not touch the lady who has been here for 10, 20 years contributing to the economy. Those who have been picking up the jalapeno peppers or the dairies or the greenhouses or the slaughterhouses, those people who are illegal and they broke the law, it's true, but we should give them the dignity status. No citizenship, no amnesty, just let them stay and help with the economy. And that is why those people are protesting. They're not defending the Trenderagua. They're defending those who have been here contributing and do not have a criminal record.
And by the way, just so you can all see that she promised that this was never going to happen, and she sold her constituents out. I mean, she comes from a Cuban family that left, and she said that he's never going to come after Latino communities. That was her promise. And after the election, she made her rounds on the various shows. And here's what she would say. Here, play this clip.
I am sure that that the Trump administration is not going to be targeting those people who have been here for more than 5 years, that have American kids, that don't have criminal records, that have been working in the economy and paying taxes. I am sure that they're going to hone in on the criminals who arrived less than 4 years ago. Because I wrote the Dignity Act, and I am the first one who understands that you have to give some type of dignity to those who have been here for more than 5 years, people who have roots in the country, not people who are coming to commit crimes.
If I can just clarify from you, have you received those kinds of details from anyone in a potential Trump administration? Because so far what we've heard is a proposal for mass deportations. We have about 30 seconds left. Have you gotten those assurances?
Mass deportation to those who are committing crimes who have been here for less than 5 years. You understand that you have millions of undocumented who are contributing with the economy and are helping our country to be a better one.
Yeah, utter betrayal. Speaking of utter betrayal, then you have Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, and Brooke Rollins says to Larry Kudlow as they talk about ripping away people's SNAP. So now following the government shutdown, she's like, oh, well, now we should just get rid of people's SNAP in general. These people are so disturbing. But then Brooke Rollins says, you know, one of the great untold stories of the past 10 months is how cheap we've made things. Everything costs less, Larry. We've done it. We've made things more affordable. Just because you say it over and over again, Brooke, Agriculture Secretary Rollins, it doesn't make it true. Things are more expensive right now. And that is why Americans are livid, among other reasons. Here, play this clip.
Apart from solving eggs, and by the way, grocery prices are being solved too. Tell me about this SNAP program, the need for reform, waste, fraud, and abuse. Why is it we have still 42 million people up there? What you going after over at USDA?
Well, hello, my best friend Larry. It's so great to be on. Beautiful, chilly night here at the White House. But yeah, first the president on eggs. That conversation I was in, should we do plastic eggs? Should we not? He said, Brooke, we're not going to have plastic eggs at the Easter egg roll at the White House. Go get the price of eggs down. And really in almost 10 months, it's down 86%, right, the price of eggs. But to your question, this president has been, as you know, because you know him so well, resolutely focused on making America more affordable again. And Larry, one of the great untold stories is in just 10 months, almost everything does cost less.
And then they bring on their ambassador to the United Nations, who used to be the national security advisor, but then invited a reporter onto a Signal chat. And then he basically got moved to become the United Nations ambassador. Anyway, here's Mike Waltz. And Mike Waltz says, folks, it's really important to know that the United States will now be represented by the female rapper Nicki Minaj in the United Nations, and she will speak powerfully about the persecution of Christians in Nigeria because Donald Trump saw a story about that somewhere and he threatened to invade Nigeria. Here, play this clip.
But then again, I just can't overemphasize, to have Nicki Minaj, to have the, kind of pop culture and civil society saying enough is enough. Christians are the most persecuted religion around the world, but 80% of it happens in Nigeria.
And while all of that's taking place, you had Donald Trump, of course, meeting with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and bragging about all of the gold that's in the Oval Office and saying that Saudi Arabia is now a big ally of the United States and talking about giving nuclear technology, to Saudi Arabia. I mean, have you ever seen Trump this giddy around anybody? I mean, this guy was like giddy about it's really, really weird. And he goes, we're bringing the prices down. Here, play this clip.
And we're rebuilding the reserves. We're doing all of this, and we've done a job. We're also bringing down prices very substantially, and we've already brought them down very, very substantially. Gasoline is way down. I think you'll be seeing $2 gasoline, but we're now at $2.50, $2.45. Some are lower than that. It was $4.50, $5, $6, $3.50, $3.75. Under by all different numbers, but way high.
And what's absolutely pissing off, I think, the Trump supporters and a lot of people who vote Republican is Donald Trump keeps on saying we're in a golden age and everyone's doing great. And people see Donald Trump getting rich. They see him hanging out with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and doing business deals and talking about all of the gold. But Americans are feeling pain right now as a result of Donald Trump's tariffs against the world, his trade war against the world, and more. I want to bring in Governor Josh Shapiro of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Governor, I just want to first ask you about, what we were just talking about there. Donald Trump's out there now. I guess his plan on affordability is not actually to do it. It's to do the opposite and then just lie to people and say, it's all better. I made it much better. What do you make of that?
I mean, look, Donald Trump sits behind his desk in the Oval Office every day bullshitting the American people. But when the American people show up at the grocery store and try and buy beef or try and buy poultry or try and buy the basic necessities they need every day, it doesn't matter how much they were listening to Donald Trump bullshit. They see the prices and they see those prices going up. And so, for all his rhetoric, for all his hot air, you can't convince people to unsee something they saw with their own eyes. And what they're seeing are prices going way up on Donald Trump's watch. And why are they going up? Because Donald Trump pushed a button, started a trade war, added cost to everything with his tariffs. And you're seeing that at the grocery store. Our farmers are seeing it. Our manufacturers are seeing it. And people are worse off because of Donald Trump's economic policies.
I've heard people say, if you want to know my values, look at my budget, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've unfortunately normalized in the American system continuing resolutions, which we don't even see a budget. And what's your priorities? What's your vision? And then, of course, there was the government shutdown. But what I liked about the budget that you put forward in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is it shows what your priorities are, and you're loud and you're proud about it, and you negotiate with Democrats, with Republicans. I mean, you have divided upper and lower chambers, and you've got to deal with that. So talk to us about how you get through your priorities while dealing with people who don't seem to necessarily see eye to eye with some of the issues that you champion.
Yeah, I mean, look, a budget may look like a spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers in it, but to your point at the outset of your question, it is a statement of your priorities and of your principles. Like, what do you give a damn about? That's what shows up in your budget. I've got a unique dynamic here in Pennsylvania where I have to negotiate with Republicans and Democrats. I need Republican votes and Democratic votes in order to get a budget to my desk to sign. And so I proposed my budget way back in February. I just signed it last week. And look, in fairness, it was late, but it was late because I stayed at the table. I fought for what I believed in, and I got a whole lot more than I gave. We funded public education and public safety, economic growth and development. And what we did was we focused on a number of issues that are going to truly matter to people. We passed, for the first time in 54 years in Pennsylvania, a progressive tax cut, a tax cut for working families. It's known at the federal level as an earned income tax credit. We call it working Pennsylvanians tax credit, where basically folks who are working, who are poor, who are struggling to get by, you now get up to an $800 tax break or money back in your pocket here in Pennsylvania. We invested in childcare workers and home health care aides, in hiring more teachers and more cops and firefighters, stuff that really matters in people's day-to-day lives. And, look, there were a whole lot of people as this budget process dragged on who said, Gov, just take a deal, sign a budget, move on. We stayed at the table. We fought for what we believed in, and we got a whole lot of good done for the people of Pennsylvania. And look, I think it's a contrast to what happened in D.C., where they kind of cut and run and got nothing for it. I think it really matters. If you believe in something, you got to fight for it, and you got to find ways to bring Republicans and Democrats together to get stuff done.
Right. One of the things that we shouldn't even look at as like partisan or political or anything. It's, Trump says, I'm a great deal maker. I do all of these things. But when it comes to actually trying to do a negotiation, his view is don't even speak to the other side and let me just go along with whatever my preconceived notion is. And oftentimes it's very, very wrong. And he leads with that versus listening and just kind of doing the things that you're doing. I think one of the things that frustrated the American people about this government shutdown, though, was to see, and this was the decision by MAGA Mike Johnson, though, was to say the House isn't even showing up. In our system, we're not even going to be there. We're not even going to talk to the other side, yet alone negotiate with the other side. And then MAGA Mike would go up there every day and he would hold these press conferences and people would be like, what are you doing? Like, we know you just told your people not to show. Like, how do you not show up? I mean, that part to me, as someone who didn't have a political background and then got into, doing this media company, I'm just like, what are you doing? Why didn't you talk to each other?
Yeah. And look, beyond politics here, it's super disrespectful to the American people. I don't know what a congressman makes. I think they probably make around a couple $100,000. They're supposed to work full time, and to simply not show up for work, that's a middle finger to the American people who are relying on them to do their job so they can eat and so that they can have opportunities in their communities. And their schools are going to be funded and a whole lot more. And so when Mike Johnson sends the House home, and remember, he sent them home because they were afraid of those Epstein files, but he sent them home. And I think what that really shows is a lack of respect for the American people. If you're not willing to show up and do your job, even if we disagree on some issues, that really is disrespectful. And I'll just come back to something else you said about kind of the way we do things here in Pennsylvania versus Trump's unwillingness to talk to the other side. I think it is important to compromise, so long as you don't compromise your principles. And what you have to do is stay at the table, is fight for what you believe in, but you got to also keep an open dialogue with the other side, because in our business and politics, the way you get stuff done is by creating consensus, by bringing people together. And that's the Pennsylvania way. That's what we're doing here. And gosh, I wish they did more of that in DC.
One of the things that I've noticed as I followed parliamentary systems, like the recent vote in Canada to pass their budget, if they don't pass a budget, it automatically triggers a snap election, and then everyone has to run for office again, which frankly I kind of like, because if you can't be in there and get that budget passed, all right, that's a vote of no confidence, and go and do it. I just found that interesting as they passed their budget. Prime Minister Carney could have lost the government if he didn't pull into his coalition like a Green Party member.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually conversation here when the Pennsylvania legislature left for a chunk of time during our budget negotiations and didn't come back to work. I was asked, hey, would you sign legislation docking their pay if they're not doing their jobs? I said, yeah. I think, if you got a job to do for, in our case, the people of Pennsylvania or the American people, you got to show up for work and do your job. I was here every day. I think that's what people expect from their leaders, and we need more of that.
Look, let's take a look at what you got all political parties to agree to. You mentioned delivering for our kids, right? So the budget funds universal free breakfast, $100 million in mental health and school safety grants, an additional $565 million in the adequacy formula that sends money to the schools that need it the most, $105 million more for basic education funding, $125 million for school infrastructure and more. Then when you go and talk about small businesses, you talk about how nearly 1 million small businesses line our main streets, and you invested $20 million to help small businesses expand, invest in their storefront. I can go on and on and on, but it seems that government in Pennsylvania is uplifting and doing things for the people versus it seems the government at the federal level is doing things to the people in terms of like hurting people and taking away things and sending ICE agents to round people up. I just want to remind people that there's a way that government can actually work with compromise. Yeah. As you said, it could be messy. It could be a little slower than you'd like, but you got it done. You got stuff done.
Yeah, and look, the federal government has proven to be incredibly punitive. They're hurting the American people. They're making prices go up. They're creating chaos in our streets. And now look at what we're doing in Pennsylvania on a bipartisan basis, right? We're doing things that are positive. And yeah, to your point, like, I didn't get everything I wanted, but I didn't compromise my principles. And I drew some lines and said, I will not sign a budget unless it invests in education, unless it invests in safety, unless it invests in cutting taxes to bring costs down and putting money back in people's pockets. And I think when you establish what your guardrails are and you stay true to that, you can then deliver positive things for the people you represent.
Governor, before we go, anything else that's on your mind that you want our 6 million subscribers to know that you're focused on, that's coming around the corner, that you maybe want to let people know to start paying attention to this so we can start gearing our minds as we look towards the new year after Thanksgiving, knowing that people are still struggling right now as they head to Thanksgiving?
Yeah, and look, I know that so many people are struggling. Look, at a time where, we've cut taxes 7 times to put money back in the pockets of seniors, back in the pockets of people trying to afford childcare, back in the pockets of working families. At the same time, all that's happening, the president of the United States, because of his tariffs, are raising costs. So when you go to have your Thanksgiving meal this year, it's going to cost more because of Donald Trump. I think when you ask me the question about what's around the corner, well, hopefully Donald Trump will realize these tariffs have been an incredible failure and get rid of them in order to help bring the cost down. Look, he's already acknowledged that his tariffs are the reason why beef prices went up. And so he's trying to roll back those tariffs. He's acknowledged that his tariffs have done that. So hopefully two things will happen. One, he will undo the tariffs. They're leading to higher prices here in this country. And number two, when you ask me what's around the corner, I think what we also need to be mindful of are utility costs. I've been super aggressive here in Pennsylvania about holding the entity that controls our utility costs, known as PJM. I've been holding them accountable. I sued them and won and capped energy prices. We've got a lot more things we need to do here in Pennsylvania to bring down the cost of energy. It's a shame the federal government is making it harder for us to do that, but that's something that I'm going to be focused quite a bit on as we head into this new year. The steps we can take as a state to bring down costs, particularly in a big energy producing state like ours. So look, there's a lot around the corner, but that's one thing I'd highlight. I think that's another area where we've got to bring down costs. And I'll tell you what, I campaigned with Mikey Sherrill. I campaigned with Abigail Spanberger. Both of them had plans in New Jersey and Virginia to bring down utility costs. I've got plans to do that here, and we're going to make sure that we are doing that here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Governor Josh Shapiro, the Get Stuff Done governor from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Appreciate you.
Great to be with you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in Pennsylvania. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Midas Mighty. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.